Pam Bondi had always been a force to be reckoned with. As a seasoned political figure, she had seen her fair share of controversies, but nothing prepared her for the storm that was about to break. The whispers had been growing louder over the past few weeks, rumors of a powerful judge making decisions that were undermining the very foundation of judicial freedom. The name that kept coming up: John Roberts. It all started innocuously enough. Pam was attending a private event at the Capitol, mingling with political allies, when a conversation took an unexpected turn. An old colleague from her time in Florida, now a key figure in legal circles, leaned in and dropped the bombshell: "Roberts is playing both sides, Pam. He's been pulling strings in ways that could put the entire judiciary in jeopardy." Pam froze for a moment, trying to process the information. John Roberts, Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, was a man she had long respected. But as she listened more, the details became impossible to ignore. Roberts had allegedly been compromising on some of the most critical decisions facing the country, and the judicial system was starting to feel the weight of his hidden manipulations. There were reports of secretive meetings, of votes being swayed, of decisions made behind closed doors, decisions that favored corporate interests, that lacked the transparency and fairness the court was meant to uphold. Bondi knew something had to be done. If Roberts was truly undermining judicial freedom, the consequences would be far-reaching. It wasn't just about one man, it was about the integrity of the entire system. As the evening progressed, Pam couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the precipice of something monumental. She made her decision then and there. She would expose John Roberts. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. The following days were a whirlwind of covert meetings and late-night strategy sessions. Pam Bondi knew that if she were going to bring down a figure as powerful as Chief Justice John Roberts, she would need more than just hearsay and rumors. She needed evidence, something concrete, something undeniable. Pam reached out to an old friend, a former FBI investigator turned private security consultant, who had connections within the legal world. His name was Marcus Holt, and he had a reputation for digging up the kinds of dirt that made careers collapse overnight. "I need access to everything on Roberts," Pam told Marcus one evening over the phone. "Every case he's handled in the last 5 years, every vote, every behind-the-scenes meeting. I need the full picture." Marcus' response was terse. "It's risky. Roberts is no ordinary target. If we go public with this, we're not just going after a judge, we're going after the very foundation of the judiciary. You sure you want to take that step?" Pam didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. If what I'm hearing is true, it's not just a risk, it's a necessity." Within days, Marcus had started pulling strings. He had infiltrated legal circles, gaining access to confidential documents and recordings of meetings that were supposed to remain hidden from the public eye. The more they uncovered, the more damning the evidence became. A pattern began to emerge. Roberts had consistently voted in favor of big corporations, often siding with corporate interests against the very principles of justice. But what was even more concerning were the secret meetings with high-powered lobbyists and donors, some of whom had business before the court. It was clear that something much darker was at play. Pam knew that revealing these findings would be catastrophic for Roberts, and for the judiciary as a whole. But she also knew that it was the only way to restore integrity to the system. It was time to make her move. The day Pam Bondi had been dreading, and preparing for, finally arrived. Marcus Holt had compiled the evidence, and it was undeniable. Pam could feel the weight of it, heavy and dangerous, pressing on her every time she thought about releasing it to the public. But she knew it was the only way to expose John Roberts and restore trust in the justice system. She scheduled a press conference for the following morning. The media would be waiting, and she had no intention of holding back. As the clock struck 9 a.m., Pam stood before the podium, her expression composed but her mind racing. The cameras flashed, and reporters from across the nation waited for her to speak. She cleared her throat, adjusted the microphone, and began. "Thank you all for being here today," she started. I come before you with grave news about the state of our judiciary. The very system that we, as Americans, have trusted to uphold justice is being systematically undermined by one of its highest officials, Chief Justice John Roberts. A murmur spread through the room, the audience uncertain if they had heard her correctly. Pam's voice remained steady as she continued. Over the last several weeks, my team and I have uncovered a series of confidential documents, recordings, and witness accounts that implicate Roberts in a series of actions that compromise the integrity of the Supreme Court. Evidence reveals that Roberts has repeatedly made rulings that favor corporate interests, while meeting in secret with lobbyists and donors, people with direct stakes in the very cases he's been presiding over. The room was silent. Pam could feel the eyes of every reporter on her, waiting for the next bombshell. We've learned that these actions are not isolated incidents. They are part of a disturbing pattern, a pattern that threatens the fairness and independence of our judicial system. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has allowed his own personal interests, as well as the interests of powerful financial backers, to influence his decisions. As Pam laid out the details, showing evidence of meetings, connections between Roberts and powerful corporations, and records of secretive votes, a palpable shift took place. Journalists scrambled to write, cameras clicked incessantly, and the air was thick with disbelief. The most trusted institution in the country was now under question, and it all centered on one man, John Roberts. John Roberts has failed us, Pam concluded, her voice steady but firm. And if we do not act now, the integrity of our courts will be forever compromised. The time has come for accountability. With those words, she stepped back from the podium, the silence hanging heavy in the air. The world would not be the same after this. The fallout had only just begun. The press conference sent shockwaves through Washington, D.C., and the nation at large. Social media erupted with posts, hashtags, and heated debates. Pam Bondi's bold accusations had ignited a firestorm that seemed impossible to contain. News outlets were in a frenzy, trying to digest the overwhelming evidence she had presented. But no one was more affected by it than Chief Justice John Roberts himself. By the time Pam arrived back at her office, her phone was already buzzing incessantly. She ignored most of the calls, knowing they were from reporters or political allies scrambling to gauge her next move. But there was one message she had been expecting, a private number she recognized immediately. It was Marcus. "Pam, this is big. Roberts is already fighting back. I've been hearing rumors from the inside that he's planning to make a statement this afternoon. He'll try to spin this into an attack on judicial independence, and he's likely to point fingers at you." Pam's pulse quickened. She knew that Roberts had connections and influence that stretched far beyond the Supreme Court. He was a master at using his position to manipulate the narrative, and Pam had no doubt that he would attempt to discredit her and downplay the scandal. "We need to be ready," Pam said, her voice cold with determination. "If he's going to attack me, I'm going to make sure the public sees just how deep this corruption goes. No turning back now." Hours later, John Roberts delivered a carefully crafted response. Standing before the cameras, his usual calm demeanor masking the fury brewing beneath the surface, he defended his record. "My decisions have always been in the interest of justice and fairness," he said. "What Ms. Bondi has presented is a baseless and politically motivated smear campaign. These are attacks on judicial independence, meant to weaken the very foundation of our legal system. I will not stand idly by while these unfounded accusations attempt to destroy my career and the reputation of the court." The speech was rehearsed and precise, but Roberts' words couldn't fully mask the underlying panic. The allegations were too serious to dismiss outright, and despite his denials, the public's trust was already wavering. For every critic that believed Roberts' defense, there were others who saw through the facade. Pam's phone rang again, this time with a call from an unexpected source. It was a senior senator from her own party, Senator Mark Harris, known for his unflinching loyalty to the Constitution. "Pam," he said quietly, "I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Roberts is a dangerous man right now. He has powerful allies, and he won't go down without a fight. But I've seen the evidence. You're not alone in this. We'll stand with you. But you need to prepare yourself, this is going to get ugly. Pam felt a chill run down her spine. She had anticipated the resistance, but hearing it from someone in her own camp made the stakes even clearer. This was no longer just about judicial corruption, it was a battle for the future of American democracy. The next few days were filled with rapid-fire developments. Pam's team dug deeper, uncovering even more about Roberts' connections to influential political donors and corporations with pending cases before the court. Each revelation added fuel to the fire, but so did Roberts' attempts to discredit her and shift the focus to a narrative of attacks on the judiciary. The battle lines were drawn. As the pressure mounted, Pam realized that this was no longer just a fight against John Roberts. It was a fight for the soul of the judicial system, and the very essence of what it meant to uphold justice in America. The political landscape had shifted. Pam Bondi's accusations had sparked a wildfire, but now the fire was starting to spread beyond what she had anticipated. John Roberts' allies were pulling every string they could, trying to rewrite the narrative, discredit her at every turn, and suppress the mounting evidence. The tension in Washington had reached a boiling point, and Pam could feel the weight of it on her shoulders. Inside her office, she sat alone, flipping through the confidential files Marcus had provided. She had become accustomed to the staggering depth of corruption they were uncovering, every new piece of evidence painted a more damning portrait of Roberts. But what she hadn't expected was the extent to which Roberts' defenders would go to protect him. "Pam, you need to see this," Marcus said, barging into her office without knocking. His expression was grim as he placed a file on her desk. This came from someone inside Roberts' circle. "It's a bombshell." Pam opened the folder. Inside, she found detailed transcripts of secret conversations between Roberts and several high-profile lobbyists, some of whom had cases pending before the Supreme Court. The transcripts were clear: Roberts had been orchestrating deals, trading influence in exchange for financial support for his personal projects. The corruption ran deeper than anyone had imagined. "This is it," Pam murmured, her mind racing. "This is the final proof we need." Marcus nodded. "But there's a problem. Roberts' supporters are already going on the offensive. They're discrediting your team, saying you're working with rogue elements trying to dismantle the Supreme Court. They're going to try to destroy your credibility." Pam clenched her fists. "I don't care about my credibility. The truth needs to come out, no matter what it costs." And then, as if on cue, her phone rang. It was the senior senator, Mark Harris again. His voice was low, almost conspiratorial. "Pam, listen carefully," he said. "The situation's escalating. There's talk of some sort of counterstrike coming from Roberts' camp, something big. I don't know what, but they're moving fast. We don't have much time to prepare. Get the evidence out there, now." Pam's heart raced. She had been ready to drop the bombshell at the right moment, but the clock was ticking. If Roberts was preparing a counterattack, she couldn't afford to wait. "I'll set up a live broadcast," Pam said, her voice firm. "Get the full story out in front of the public. Let them see exactly what kind of man they've been trusting all these years." Within hours, Pam had arranged an emergency press conference. She stood in front of the cameras, her face resolute, the weight of the moment pressing on her every word. Behind her, the damning evidence, transcripts, recordings, and documents, were displayed for all to see. "The American people deserve the truth," Pam began, her voice unwavering. "Today, I'm here to reveal the full extent of the corruption that has been running through the highest court in our land. Chief Justice John Roberts has been using his position to strike deals with corporate interests, allowing them to influence his decisions, and turning the very system of justice into a weapon for the powerful." The cameras flashed, capturing every word. Pam knew there was no turning back now. "As of today, I am calling for an immediate investigation into the actions of Chief Justice Roberts," she continued. The documents and recordings you're about to see prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Roberts has used his position to advance his personal agenda, undermining the principles of fairness and justice that this country was built upon. The response from the public was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with outrage, political leaders began calling for an inquiry, and the media quickly shifted from focusing on Roberts' defense to demanding answers. The narrative had changed completely. Roberts' supporters were scrambling, and the weight of the evidence was too much to ignore. But just as Pam thought she had gained the upper hand, a statement from Roberts' camp was released, one that would send shockwaves through the entire nation. Pam Bondi sat in her office, watching the response to her press conference unfold in real time. The nation was divided. Some called her a hero, a crusader for justice. Others, especially Roberts' staunch supporters, called her a political opportunist, a threat to the integrity of the judiciary. But what Pam hadn't anticipated was how quickly the stakes would escalate. Just hours after her broadcast, Roberts' camp released a statement, a direct, personal attack aimed squarely at Pam. In it, Roberts accused her of dangerously politicizing the judiciary, claiming that she had fabricated the evidence and was engaging in a smear campaign to destroy his legacy. The statement came with an unprecedented twist. Roberts was calling for an immediate congressional hearing to clear his name and, at the same time, an investigation into Pam herself. "Pam, this is bad," Marcus said, his voice tense on the phone. "They're going after you, personally. The Senate's Judiciary Committee is moving fast on this. They're framing this as an attempt to destabilize the Supreme Court. They'll drag you through the mud if you're not careful." Pam didn't flinch. This was the final gambit. Roberts was trying to discredit her in the eyes of the public, make her the villain, and force a narrative where she was the one under investigation. But Pam knew what was at stake. She wasn't just fighting for her own reputation, she was fighting for the future of the country's judicial system. The congressional hearing was scheduled quickly, and Pam was called to testify. When she entered the hearing room, the tension was palpable. The room was packed with reporters, politicians, and legal experts, all waiting for the next move. Roberts had made his move first, and now it was her turn to respond. Senator Mark Harris had been leading the charge for the investigation, and as Pam took her seat at the witness table, he leaned in slightly, offering her a reassuring nod. The opposition, of course, was led by Roberts' allies, prominent figures from the legal world who were ready to defend him at all costs. "Ms. Bondi," Senator Harris began, "we've heard your accusations. But what we need to know now is, why should the American people believe that this is more than a partisan attack? Why should we trust that these documents and recordings aren't fabricated?" Pam met his gaze with a calm intensity. "Because, Senator, the truth is undeniable. These aren't just documents from a political opponent, these are the same kinds of records that would hold up in any court of law. I didn't just find this information, I uncovered a pattern. A pattern that shows a man, Chief Justice Roberts, abusing his power, using his position to tilt the scales of justice in favor of the powerful elite." As she spoke, Pam watched the faces around the room, trying to gauge the reactions. Some were skeptical, but others, notably a few senators from both sides of the aisle, seemed to be absorbing her words carefully. The tide was beginning to turn. Senator Harris then directed Pam's attention to the documents. "Would you be willing to release these to the public, under official scrutiny, to ensure transparency?" Pam nodded. "Absolutely. These need to be seen by everyone. The American people deserve to know the truth." The next several hours were a whirlwind of questioning. Pam stood firm, defending her position and the irrefutable evidence she had uncovered. As the hearing drew to a close, it was clear that the tide had shifted. Public opinion was starting to swing heavily against Roberts, and the political pressure was mounting. Late that evening, after the hearing had adjourned, Pam received another call from Marcus. His voice was tight with excitement. "They're moving fast, Pam. Roberts' allies are scrambling. There's talk of him stepping down to save face, but here's the thing, they're already leaking rumors about a major investigation into him. It's getting bigger than we thought. Pam knew what that meant. Robert's hold on power was slipping. But it wasn't over yet. The public had seen the truth, and the momentum was irreversible. The following week, a shocking announcement came from the Supreme Court. John Roberts was stepping down as Chief Justice, citing personal reasons and the need to preserve the integrity of the court. It was a political maneuver, of course. Roberts was trying to save his legacy and avoid the full public reckoning that was on the horizon. But it wasn't enough to erase the damage done. Pam Bondi had won. The exposure of Roberts' corruption had rocked the judiciary, and while the full details of his actions would likely be buried in the coming months, the trust of the public had been shaken, perhaps irreparably. As she watched the news coverage of Roberts' resignation, Pam felt a quiet sense of triumph. The system had fought back, but in the end, the truth had prevailed. And yet, the work was far from over. This was only one battle in the larger war to reclaim justice for the people. Pam knew there were more corrupt figures in the system to expose, more battles to fight. But for now, she had taken down one of the most powerful men in the country, and she had proven that the pursuit of truth, no matter the cost, was always worth it.